Now, most of you are probably familiar with vlogmas, whereby YouTubers post little vlogs each day about what they're up to, or anything else for that matter. But me being me, and bearing in mind I might not vlog every day, because unless I've got something valuable to say, I don't usually say it. My first contribution to vlogmas is the subject of Arla. Now, if you're in the UK, or maybe even elsewhere, you may most likely have heard of a new Bill Gates funded project called Farmerhead. Now, Arla is a large company with the UK's biggest cooperative of dairy farmers who supply them with milk. There are about 2,000 of these dairy farmers nationwide. Arla then processes the milk, so it might add sweeteners, flavourings, colourings and any other additives, and then sell on the dairy produced from the farms to huge food manufacturers. 30 of these farmers are taking part in this project. So Arla is trialling this Bill Gates funded feed. It's called Bovaer, and it contains a methane-reducing additive called 3NOP to tackle methane emissions, and also in association with 3 supermarkets, which are Morrison's, Tesco and Aldi. We'll see a collective initiative across the food industry to trial the use of Bovaer, which claims to reduce enteric methane emissions from cows on average by 27%, despite concerns shown by, for example, the Farmers Union over genotoxicity and carcinogenicity. That's a bit of a mouthful. It turns out, however, that Tesco have been selling dairy produce with this additive since July of this year, unbeknownst to the general public. Now, the Farmerhead project was only given the go-ahead in April 2024 and hasn't had any long-term trials. And the general public were not informed until last week. I also found this article online. I'll put it up on the screen. "3-NOP can have some side effects, including skin and eye irritant. It can irritate the skin and eyes. Potentially harmful when inhaled. 3-NOP may be harmful if inhaled. May damage male fertility and reproductive organs. 3-NOP may damage male fertility and reproductive organs. If you like, shrink the testicles. When handling Bovaer, you should wear personal protective gear, including eyewear, a dust mask and impervious gloves. Wash hands after handling. Rinse eyes thoroughly with water if there is accidental eye exposure." Does that sound safe to you? And how will it affect your overall health if products or foods that have been produced from cows whose feed contains this additive? That's question. Arla also supplies many supermarkets with milk, including Aldi, M&S and Morrison's, and fast food outlets such as McDonald's and Costa Coffee. The Muller brand is also part of this initiative and supplies Sainsbury's with their own brand dairy produce, and this has been the case since, I believe, 2023. Lidl is not affected, nor is Farm Foods, and is Bovaer-free. Those two supermarkets use Trewithen Dairy, a dairy based in Cornwall, which has declared it is Bovaer-free. This is really important to know because Lidl and Farm Foods are both popular budget friendly supermarkets. So if you're on a limited income, it's good to know that you can still shop safely, because we don't know what the long-term effects of Bovaer is going to be, because there haven't been any long-term trials. Now, up on the screen are some of the Arla brands. And there's a raft of popular brands which are also affected due to, I suppose, the fact that Arla and or Muller supply the dairy. So we have Cadbury, Milka, Nestle, McDonald's, Costa and Starbucks. Arla brands include Muller, Arla, Cravendale, Appetina, which are popular cooking cheeses such as Paneer, Castello, which produces high quality cheeses, Anchor Butter. Yo Valley is also included on some lists. However, they have confirmed that they are not involved in the project. Therefore, don't rely solely on hearsay and sources. Do your own research to keep up to date with developments which may change. Now, Arla, of course, has many European brands as well. One of them is Bell, which you're probably familiar with. Bell has 6 core brands. The Laughing Cow, which is cheese spread triangles, Mini Baby Bell, Curl, Boursin, Go Go Squeezy and Nourish. These brands are distributed on 5 continents, as well as more than 25 local brands with a powerful image. So it's not just affecting us here in the UK, it's a worldwide issue. So I suppose I have a few questions here, as I'm sure most of you do. For example, where is the consumer consultation? There doesn't appear to be much sign of democracy within the food chain, let alone at the political level around food safety or informed consent. Surely we have the right to know the origins and ingredients of the food that we are consuming in order to make an informed decision about whether or not we wish to avoid those foods. So it is quite worrying if a lot of these brands are using Bovaer. That's gambling with public health. Is that right? There's questions as well about labelling. Now, some supermarket brands just have reduced for and then the supermarket name. Others have better labelling and will say produced for by. Some have nothing at all. So there's a lack of transparency there, is there not? So there's many people who are starting to boycott the Arla and Muller brands. However, the problem is, what will dairy farmers do with unwanted milk if people start to boycott the supermarkets more and the brands? Already, a lot of farmers sell to the supermarkets without making much money at all. They're beaten down competitively on price. It's quite a difficult situation. So it is really important, if you're concerned about Bovaer, that you still support your farmers and go to them direct, which is what more people have been doing. And this also begs the question, are some of the farmers pushed in a corner or offered incentives by Arla? Partly maybe because of the new inheritance tax laws and other levies imposed upon them. A lot of farmers are really under a lot of strain right now. I found an article on Arla which says Arla to reward farmers for sustainability actions with farm ahead incentive, which seems to answer that question. It says Arla Foods introduces farm ahead incentive to its farmer owners to help fund and motivate actions required to hit the 2030 emission reduction target on the farm. 2 years after implementing a comprehensive climate check on 8,000 farms across 7 European countries, Arla farmers are taking another significant step to be at the forefront of environmentally sustainable dairy. From next year, the milk price that the individual Arla farmer will receive from the dairy cooperative will depend on his or her activities related to environmental sustainability. Farm ahead incentive is a historical milestone in Arla's transition to more sustainable dairy. We are introducing farm ahead incentive, which is a fundamental change to our milk price model. Going forward, the milk price Arla's farmers will receive for their milk will not only depend on fat, protein and quality, it will also depend on their activities on sustainability, which kind of intimates that farmers who do not involve themselves in this project could be significantly affected on price and their ability to keep the heads above water. To me, it sounds like a form of bribery. I'm just putting it out there. So to carry on with some other main points, there needs to be a call for transparent labelling on all packaging, including ready meals and other processed foods, including drinks and chocolate, to enable us to choose whether or not we wish to consume dairy products treated with Bovaer. So there's a very real danger that the toxins in this 3-NOP additive in Bovaer will permeate the whole food chain as well as the countryside and rivers and streams, posing danger to our health and well-being, as well as animals and wildlife, natural habitats and biodiversity. They're bound to seep out in the manufacturing processes. I see it as being unavoidable. So how is that going to pan out? Just as a spectator, I'm asking that question. There's more and more people as well on social media calling for Arla to name the 30 farmers taking part in the Bovaer initiative in order to choose whether or not to avoid them. However, more and more farmers and dairy producers have been coming out to declare that they are not involved in the Farm Ahead project. Some interesting facts as well about methane. Methane, which you get from cows burping and farting, only makes up 0.00019% of the atmosphere. And the Bovaer initiative is not only potentially toxic, but futile in the bigger scheme of things, because cows giving off gas is a tiny fraction of the Earth's atmosphere. If you compare methane produced by cows with the average car produces 4.6 metric tons of carbon. Aeroplanes emit around 100 times more CO2 per hour than a shared bus or train journey. And the emissions of global aviation are around 1 billion tonnes of CO2 per year, more than the emissions of most countries, including Germany. Results of a recent study showed that private aviation overall contributed approximately 15.6 million metric tonnes of CO2 in 2023, about 3.6 metric tonnes per flight on average. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand that we are perhaps being sold a white elephant. One of the latest Farmers Weekly articles discusses about the backlash over the Arla trials with methane-reducing Bovaer. This article was by Debbie James and was dated the 2nd of December 2024, so it's a new article. And it says, direct milk sellers have taken to social media to distance themselves from Arla Foods and its trial of the feed additive Bovaer on UK supply farms after a consumer backlash to the study, including boycotts of products made by the dairy cooperative. Arla announced last week that it would test Bovaer, a feed additive which suppresses a methane-producing enzyme, on more than 30 farms. What it hadn't reckoned with was the public reaction to this trial amid concern about any human health implications. So at least we're taking matters into account and are really thinking about things and saying, no, enough. That's people power. We don't want these things. Why should we be expected to go along with it? Even though the product is approved by the Food Standards Agency, shoppers have seemingly tried to avoid Arla dairy products in supermarkets. As momentum has grown around the controversy, one of the most vocal groups has been farmers who sell milk direct to the public, who've been keen to set the record straight on what they feed their cows. Some, such as Attleborough Hall Farm at Attleborough, Norfolk, have stressed that despite being an Arla member, they are not taking part in the feed additive trial. Others have self-declared on a new website, Bovaer-free farms, that they don't use the feed additive. I suppose another question at this point is, what is the secret agenda behind the Bovaer project? An underhand way of discouraging people from eating meat and dairy in favour of insects and lab-grown produce, perhaps? according to certain 2030 agendas. It has been suggested that the Bovaer scandal actually comes from DEFRA, and that Arla are being used to divide public opinion about farms and farmers, especially as the Farmerhead project was announced after the inheritance tax controversy. And there I go on to another article involving Jeremy Clarkson, who has made comments that have been interpreted as suggesting the British countryside is being ethnically cleansed of farmers. However, this is not in the context of actual ethnic cleansing as commonly understood. His statements were made in relation to inheritance tax policies and their impact on farming. Clarkson has accused the Labour government, specifically Chancellor Rachel Reeves, of having a sinister plan to carpet bomb our farmland with new towns for immigrants and net zero wind farms before they can ethnically cleanse the countryside of farmers, in other words, get rid of farmers. This rhetoric was part of his broader critique of the government's inheritance tax changes, which he claimed would make farming nigh on impossible for many traditional farmers, potentially forcing them to sell their land. And this brings me on to comments that were made yesterday by Mark at the Bowler Hat Farmer, who has heard from people familiar with Arla as an employer and who say they are very good employers, and that the project is being driven not by Arla itself, but actually the supermarkets. Sainsbury's has a 2030 food agenda, apparently, which eschews fields and the traditional farming methods in favour of lab-grown produce and insects rather than the farmers and fields. So I would encourage you to check out Sainsbury's 2030 agenda. Enter it in your search engine, whatever search engine you use, and perhaps go and have a look and see what, if anything, Sainsbury's do have to say about food production. The Soil Association has said it has received a large number of questions about whether the feed additive would be permitted for use in organic systems, and confirmed that it would not, because it's an additive, and by the very nature of organic farming or gardening, you don't add chemicals to anything. If you add chemicals or anything else that hasn't been approved by the Soil Association, then you can't call your produce organic. A lot of us who do organic gardening don't use any chemicals that are not deemed to be safe, or additives that are not approved for organic gardening, and in fact look at other natural methods of dealing with weed control and garden pests such as slugs and snails, because a lot of us have animals as well and don't want them eating things that could potentially kill them or cause them injury or health problems. Dairy farmers who have contacted Farmers Weekly are a concern. So the backlash has been caused by confusion between the Arla trial and one being funded by Microsoft founder Bill Gates using a different product. Which product is that then? That's another question. Arla made this point in its statement to Farmers Weekly as well. The information spreading online surrounding our link to Bill Gates and the safety of the Bovaer feed additive is completely false, it said. Sounds a bit like gaslighting to me, because a lot of articles say that Bill Gates is involved in the Bovaer project. The health and safety of both consumers and animals is always our #1 priority, and Arla would never compromise on the quality or high standards of the milk we produce. The plot thickens. Bovaer is made by Dutch company DSM and is approved for use in more than 55 countries, including the UK and the EU countries, as well as Australia, Canada and Switzerland. The company says a 1/4 teaspoon of the additive, which suppresses a methane-producing enzyme, can reduce a dairy cow's methane emissions by 30%. Well, it's 27% in some sources, so even that is confusing. In its statement, Arla added, Bovaer has already been extensively and safely used across Europe, and at no point during the trial will there be any impact on the milk, as it does not pass from the cow into the milk. How do they know? How do they know? Because there's been no long-term trials. How do they know? Where are the studies? Let's see the studies so we can make informed decisions. Regulatory bodies such as the European Food Safety Authority and the UK Food Standards Agency have approved its use based on evidence that it does not harm the animals or negatively impact on them. However, and this is an important point, there haven't been long-term studies. So while perhaps there might not be anything in shorter term trials, how do we know that it won't affect cows and other animals and the food chain and us? And where is the data from the short-term trials? Because there must have been some kind of research to enable it to be approved in April. So let's see the data. Let's just be open and transparent about it and see. Give us the chance to see what studies have been undertaken and what any issues might have been. So this 27% or 30% reduction, however you like to see it, whatever source you wish to believe, because let's face it, we're not all scientists. We're going on gut instinct quite often, or critical thinking as well, weighing up things for ourselves, especially when we're not being told as much as we would like to be, and when packaging isn't as transparent as it could be, and we don't even know who the farmers are involved in the project either, or whether in fact because of this 3-NOP additive is going to cause any long-term damage. Sometimes these things take a long time to process and be seen, and I'm sure you can think of other large-scale projects that turned out to be quite damaging. So, whatever source you wish to believe, whether it's 27% or 30% less methane emissions from the dairy cows, when the methane is only 0.00019% of the atmosphere anyway, which is tiny, 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 do the benefits really outweigh any liabilities? Now, there's been a statement released by Bennett's Farms, who are one of the producers who has come out and said they're not taking part in the Bovaer project. And they've made a statement in quite a lot of detail. So I'll read what they say. We've had some people ask us about the Bovaer-free trials that have made headlines this week. Our cows are not being fed any strange new additives in their diet. And the Bovaer trial is not something we are participating in. So there is no risk to any changes making their way into our milk. Our cows are fed a natural diet of food mostly grown by us on our farm. By switching to a summer and autumn block calving system, we rely even more on grass than we used to. And it means we now use even less concentrate and also less fuel to milk and feed the cows in our sheds. We're not really a fan of the idea that we should change what comes out of an animal by feeding them chemically engineered additives. Like humans, animals should be fed natural diets, not chemical synthetics. Methane produced by cows seems to be an easy target for diverting the blame for climate change from fossil fuel burning industries. Methane is dissolved into the atmosphere again after 10 to 12 years and is part of a natural cycle. So if the cattle numbers in the world stay constant, there's no impact on global warming because the methane is disappearing as fast as it is being created. Whereas the carbon created from burning fossil fuels as being added to the atmosphere as it has been extracted from its storage in the ground. An additive may reduce the amount of methane coming out of a cow directly when burping or farting, but it's not going to impact the amount seeping out of its droppings. So the net effect is surely going to be a negligible minimum, and the energy that goes into producing and transporting these additives will probably outweigh this negligible benefit. It seems to us to be another gimmick and get another cost for farmers to endure without any additional financial contribution towards our produce from customers. Global warming is caused by digging fossil fuels out of the ground in a way that is not naturally occurring phenomenon. It is not caused by the natural biological processes of animals which make use of carbon that is not already in the environmental cycle. And there we have it. And in fact, Berkeley Farms has also come out and made a similar statement. And on their page 10 Green Bottles, they have linked the For Farming UK article, which is basically what I read you earlier. And they finish with the hashtag Back British Farming. I now have a little slideshow of some of the many farms and producers of dairy who have come out and said they're not part of Bovaer. Here is just a selection. There are many, many more. So I would encourage you to contact your local dairy or dairy farmer to establish whether or not they are taking part in the initiative, and I'm sure most of them will tell you that they are not, but at least if you know that they are, you can choose whether or not to buy from them. So here we go. I wish I could have included everybody on this slideshow, but the slideshow would probably be going on for many minutes. I've tried to include farms up and down the country as much as possible, but as I said, if you're not sure about your local farm or dairy, just drop them an email. I was looking to use Fen Farm in Suffolk, who do both doorstep delivery and online orders. They produce raw milk and other high quality dairy produce. I emailed them the other day and they confirmed to me that they are not taking part in the Bovaer trial whatsoever. And I placed a Christmas order with them and I'm looking forward to receiving it. And they gave me 10% off my first order. So that's worth knowing. So if you want to try raw milk, which hasn't been treated in any way, it's not homogenised or anything of that nature, then most areas of the country will have a raw milk producer. So go off and have a look. As I mentioned earlier, there's a website called Bovaer-free farms. That is farms who don't use the additive. There are other sites as well now up and running. There's a safe list on full fat milk on X. I'll tag it up there. There's also a safe list at caremore.wixsite.com. There's also another site as well called foodfindershub.co.uk. This is an online resource directory Over 2,000 people have subscribed to it so far. It's brand new. It's free. It's free to register. So whether you're a producer or farmer, other supplier or member of the public looking to buy produce direct from producers or suppliers, foodfindershub.co.uk may be able to help with your search. You just click on the button and then type in details. Regarding the Soil Association, organic farms should not be participating in the Farm Ahead project as the additives in the feed contravene Soil Association standards. So, for example, if you hear of Arla organic products taking part in the trial, you could report it to the Soil Association, who will make an investigation. Because if they're taking part in such trials, given that the additives are not approved by the Soil Association, then their certification potentially needs to be removed. Of course, this leads us to other conclusions as well. Farmers need more incentives from the government and a cancellation of the new inheritance tax rules, as well as other levies, so they are not put into a corner and feel they have no choice but to take part in methane busting projects. So what else can we do? We can support farmers and protect ourselves as much as possible by buying direct from farmers, dairies and other independent producers and suppliers rather than the supermarkets, unless we feel confident that what we're buying from the supermarkets isn't going to make us unwell in the longer term. Asda have also confirmed that they don't actually use the Arla milk pool for their own products. However, they do, like most of the supermarkets, stock Arla products. Tesco have said that they use Trewithen farm milk in Trewithen packaging. So we have a few options. However, some people are boycotting supermarkets altogether, and there appears to be a positive shift towards shopping at local independent stockists and suppliers, and also farmers and the farm gate and farmers markets. Certainly Dan and I are going back to a doorstep delivery. Milk and more have declared themselves free of the Bovaer additive, and we are getting our first doorstep pinters tomorrow of organic milk and some other products as well. So what can the farmers do? Well, firstly, they can sign up to the various websites such as Bovaer-free Farms and Caremore and Food Finders Hub and Full Fart Milk and any other resource online, and also make their position clear. Indeed, quite a few have actually posted something on the homepage of their websites as well to declare themselves Bovaer-free. If some farmers are still concerned about climate change and environmental issues, there are other alternatives, more natural than Bovaer. For example, at John the Music on X X suggests using seaweed derived feed. It's safe to use, rich in nutrients, and is totally natural. Cattle have been eating seaweed for thousands of years. It can be cultivated, harvested and processed right here in the UK, and it would support coastal communities, and I think that is a very good idea. It's full of nutrients, essential minerals, iodine, which helps with absorption, and has many other benefits as well. There's various agricultural action groups as well that farmers can get involved with, including Fairness for Farmers and Save British Farming. And then there's also action groups such as No Farmers, No Food. There's lots of different ways farmers can get involved. On the 11th of December, farmers are going to be rolling into London again, but this time they're bringing their tractors and low loaders. And the bowler hat farmer has said that there will be space allocated where so farmers can park up. Thank you for bearing with me if you got to the end of this rather long vlog. I hope you found it informative rather than depressing, but I just want to get a few thoughts out there. But what do you think? What steps are you taking? Does it bother you? Are you not bothered? Do you think everything will be okay? Genuinely, I would really be interested to know. And also, if you have done any of your own research and have information to share, please do let me know in the comments. I'm generally interested to know. As somebody who is really interested in food science, as well as the whole recipe or reviewing side of things, I am genuinely interested in how food is produced and the effects it has on our health and well-being, as well as on animal welfare and biodiversity and the survival of the countryside. Anyway, to lighten things up a bit, let me show you a couple of things that I bought recently. Now, this is a heritage tomato, and this is called the Black Russian tomato. It's a big beef tomato, and this, I've got ideas for this. I think it will be beautiful in a salad. They're quite unusual, beautiful dark red, purple colour. I've had them before, but not for a while, but I do enjoy heritage tomatoes. Look at the colouring on it, it's beautiful. And it's just coming into full ripeness. The other thing I have to show you is a special variety of sweet potato. Now, these I got from Riverford Organic in my best box last week, and this is called Murasaki. So it looks purple on the outside, but it has a sweet white flesh, and it's quite firm, has a different texture from most sweet potatoes, and it's a brilliant substitute for normal sweet potatoes or squash, for example. Can be used in a whole host of different vegetarian recipes. I'm thinking I might use one of these in a curry or a stir fry. I think it might be quite nice. I'm going to give this a bit of thought. They keep well for a few weeks in their bag in a cool place. The coolest place here is either in the shed or in the fridge. I think they might be quite nice roasted as well. So I'm going to have a play around with these and think about how best to use them. So anyway, I'm going to love you and leave you for now, and I will see you again soon, I hope, for something a little bit more upbeat. But thanks for watching. If you made it to the end, well done. And I will see you soon. Bye for now.